Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to DDI Camp 2021. So today I'll be talking about the introduction to front end in Drupal world. So this is my actually first session in DDI, and I've not presented before. So despite of like some local meetups, I have given session, but yeah, this is my first time in DDI. So about me, I'm right now working as a front-end developer at Acquia. It's been around 4 years of experience which I have in Drupal front-end arena. And before that, I used to work on some agencies as a consultant, and then I switched on to Drupal world. So before this, I was working as a pure front-end, and then I switched my gears to Drupal front-end. So before starting the session, I wanted to highlight on one book which I published recently and called The Livelihood of Living. So it speaks about the different types of difficulties which the youth face, and I have specifically added those things in the book. So I would recommend you guys to read about that. So what we have today, I'll be talking about what is Drupal theme and what are the prerequisite tools we learn before starting in a Drupal. Third, I'll be covering ways to connect Drupal with front-end work, and I'll be touch basing some of the key highlights, which will be site view, pattern lab, and then decoupling, various types of decoupling in Drupal. And then at last, I'll cover accessibility and its importance in the real world. So, basics of Drupal theme. So this is the paragraph which I had I wanted to present. So Drupal theme is an art of using a theme by overriding concept theme and making necessary changes in order to deliver the site as required. And believe me, it becomes way more interesting. And it's not just about coding, HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So there is a myth in many of us, is Drupal just about HTML, CSS, JavaScript? No, it's not like that, because there are many other things which you can do in Drupal, especially in Drupal theming world. So before coming to Drupal world, even I used to assume that Drupal is something which is just about HTML and CSS, and there's nothing beyond that. But after coding and after having some experience into Drupal, I came to know there's stuff beyond that. So in order to get started with Drupal theming, there are some of the links which I'll be sharing in the chat later. So these are the videos which one can go through if they want to start their career into Drupal. So Drupal theming, and then Drupalize.me provides guides in terms of how to start the theming and what are configuration we need to add. So I'll talk about some of the prerequisites in just the Drupal. So SAS, Gulp, Twig, and jQuery. So this four of these are normally used in Drupal. Apart from this, depends upon the project requirements. There are some additional things like Webpack or Grunt, which is required, and it requires some additional configuration. But yeah, so these four are the fundamentals of Drupal theme. If one learns this, then they are good to start with Drupal theme part. So yeah, I also pick questions at the end of the session so that I can talk to it. So as we know, at PSC covered, there are four things which is there in Drupal. So beyond that, there are some things which are really interesting, and I'll talk a bit about that as well. So one is Storybook, which was introduced in 2019, and also Pattern Lab, which is also a new concept, as well as Site Studio, which is a non-platform. It's a platform where no code is required. And then we have the decoupled Drupal. So here we are using frameworks like Angular, React, and so I'll be talking a bit about each of those in detail. I think we have some chat. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, there's a definition like what pattern lab and storybook exactly is. So both are actually essentially a component library which provides more flexibility to implement a Drupal theme at a more granular. For example, pattern lab it uses structure where we can customize it into atoms, molecules, or organisms, and then we can use those into Drupal themes. That's one power I would say which pattern lab has. The same concept goes to storybook, but it uses in it, and it provides some more of a robust thing to include your queries into JavaScript and then. So I've used Pattern Lab more oftenly, and in terms of that, I can say like if you combine both Pattern Lab and Storybook, then it would be more like it gives you more flexibility in terms of like thinking or structure. So I'll just go through Pattern Lab. So I've written a blog on Pattern Lab. So it was long back. So I'll just show the example how exactly it is. So we are having our Drupal project, and we are actually we are defining it into three parts, which is atoms, molecules, and organisms inside this folder, and we are having this file. So it, basically what we're doing is we are including this arrow twig, for example, into accordion, and this molecule into organism. So this content region will include all the components. Like for instance, so here we are having this menu component, which has a breadcrumb, text area, and a menu. So what we're doing is we're having this organism where we are including this breadcrumb twig, and then we are including a search button. So this search button will be a molecule which you're using in an organism, which is ultimately then included in the block twig or menu twig. Like that. So I'll share this link with you guys to go through it. Define everything in like such a manner that everyone can read it. Go through it. So next is about the Site Studio. So basically, I'm just giving you a formal intro about each of those. So in detail, if we go, then it would require another hour or two. I'm just giving you an overview about each of those, like what we have in front. So Site Studio is basically a no coding component platform where we need to not write a single line of code. So this came into existence a few years back, where in order to make a site, we don't need to write a custom place, custom CSS. We just need to add a module, a Site Studio component, and then we need to just include it. So I'll be going through an example later of how we use Site Studio in our Drupal project. For instance, so here we are having a replication of Apple site. So what we have done here is we have created components for each of those menu, this banner, this component, and there are a couple of banner components which are used, and this column layout. I'll just show you in short like how it is used. So, so we are having this component menu which we're using as a component, and we have created a custom component. And here we are having a button. So this is a custom component as well, where we can actually add our components and yeah. So we're having a help section and spacing. So it's all customized in Studio. So we can actually make our components more customizable. Like for instance, so we are having some components over here. So we have added some list of components here, which are alert box container, and this we can include in our node directly. So here we can customize how we want to lay out our components. For instance, we are having this alert box. So this consists of a container and an alert message. So container would contain like the weight and style. So we can actually customize this by adding a style, whatever you want, and we can map this field with our component builder, form builder. So that was just a glimpse of how Site Studio is used. So I'll share the link of Site Studio as well, like how to use it, because it requires a key in order to use a Site Studio. So, so I'll share it at the end of the session. So till now we talked about Site Studio and some of the backend lab and storybook concepts in like in detail. And in apart from Drupal, there's this decoupling thing where we use another framework like React, Angular, or Vue in a different field, and then we integrate that with Drupal. So there are actually four types of architectures which we can use in Drupal. First is couple CMS architecture. Second is progressively decoupled architecture. Third is headless decoupling architecture. And fourth is hybrid decoupling architecture. So I'll go through this in small case so that you guys can know in glimpse how it will be. So okay, Alex, I'll put the question at the end. That's fine. Yeah. So in coupled CMS architecture, we are just the same. It's a normal Drupal CMS, and then we are having Twig, and that is we are showing it at the front end. So this is the normal CMS architecture where we are using our Twig, and here we have our Drupal CMS. Second is a progressively decoupled. So here we are having a front-end framework, which is let's say Angular or React. We will use that, and Drupal will act as a backend. It will serve an API, and that API will be used with our front-end framework within the Drupal ecosystem, and then the result will be displayed. So we can actually use this front-end framework within our Drupal CMS by including it in the library. So let's say we're using React, then we can enable it and we can use it in our Drupal ecosystem. So third is like very well-known architecture, which is an headless decoupling, where Drupal will be acting as an architect backend architecture, but our front-end framework would be not in our Drupal in like level, but it would be placed on somewhere different. We'll be using some Active or some other framework in order to call the API, and then we'll be displaying in the web. This is a very well-known actually, which commonly is used everywhere. So fourth is hybrid architecture. So here, let's say we are having a menu, we have a banner, and then we have a footer. So let's say if menu is used for templates, so it's using Twig, right? And our banner is coming from a framework, like let's say we are using React. So that is used within that application. And let's say footer is also using a Twig. So this is hybrid architecture where we can say some of the components are built using Twig and some of the components are built with our own with a framework. So in that case, it's a mixture of our front-end framework and it's just a template. Okay. also well-known news. Like there are scenarios. So like let's say it's a e-commerce platform. Then in that case, you just need the e-commerce platform to use as a React or an Angular. So in that case, we use this hybrid architecture where some of the components will be served as a quick and some as a front-end framework like Angular. Let me answer the question. Yeah, like so admin UI components also available in Drupal.org. So I'll share the link on the Slack as well as on the chat so that you can go to that. So till now, I talked about some of the uh, technical part of front end. So right now next I'll talk about accessibility. So this is a definition which I brought out from a design foundation, from interaction design foundation. So I'm pursuing a course in that for accessibility. So I from there where it is the connection between user experience and usability. So it's a user experience encompasses a number of different dimensions. However, whilst they look and feel important to user experience, perhaps the most important of this dimension is usability. It shall comprise of number of components. Usability simply refers to the speed with which an interactive device system can be used. So this specifically means that we need to indulge usability into a user experience. So when we develop our application, normally we don't look into accessibility anything. But in some countries like France and UK, they have actually uh, have some strict laws. Like they have to make it double A compliant, else there would be a charge in that. So I think in 1970 or something, at that time IBM was charged with a lot of money because they did not made it double A compliant. So accessibility is a very what to say, it's a very important thing that we need to indulge in our project. Whenever whatever you are developing, we need to do that. Let's say it should be we need to check it in Wave tool, or we should use Lighthouse, for instance. So likewise. So here I have set some important links, which would be for, like whatever I talked about. So I'll be sharing in the chat later and also in the Slack channel so that if anyone is interested into like debugging more into Drupal theming world or some of the things which I talked about, they can take a look into it. Also, do reach out to me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and happy to help if there's any queries. And you guys can like contact me. Yeah. That's it from my side. And thank you for providing me the opportunity to talk in DDI. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much for walking us through some of the front end technologies. Does anyone on the Zoom have questions?